How's it going, guys? It's Kevin here, and welcome to the channel. And today what we're going to be talking about is, we're actually going to be addressing a comment that I got from a viewer that I saw a couple days ago, and it was related to highly sensitive people and career. And this is from a highly sensitive man himself, and he was saying that, he's an accountant, and he's gotten himself into a position where he has to he's at like the head of the finance department, or he's like leading the finance department, and he's basically having issues with, I guess, bosses of his expecting him to be tough, quick, decisive. And he essentially said that, let me just pull this up, but he was saying that he feels like he needs to be a wolf at the workplace even when he's not. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to make a video talking about highly sensitive people in career, and mainly in the context of the corporate world, and which I think the vast majority or a lot of HSPs end up working in the corporate world, and they find that they can get easily overwhelmed, and they find like they're undervalued in a lot of ways. Especially from a male perspective. We can talk about that. So welcome to the channel. If you guys are new here, my name is Kevin, and on this channel we talk about highly sensitive people, particularly from a male perspective, so highly sensitive men and the future masculinity. We talk about personality psychology, so MBTI, Jungian typology stuff, and some mental health stuff mixed in. So if those topics interest you, I definitely consider subscribing to the channel and click the bell to stay notified when I release a new video. We have some interesting things in the works. I'm thinking of doing some interviews actually with other highly sensitive men or other people in this space who are helping highly sensitive men grow in their self-acceptance and confidence. So if you're a highly sensitive man and you want to come on my YouTube channel and I'll just ask you some questions and stuff, send an email to sensitiveacceptance@gmail.com and we can set something up. So without further ado, let's start talking about this. So HSPs and career. I made a couple notes here, so I'm just going to refer to it. And I do want to reference, a lot of these points are coming based off a book I read, also by Dr. Tracy Cooper, who I mentioned in the last video, and he's someone who's has a lot of authority when it comes to talking about HSPs and career, because he's studied this stuff. And also as it relates to HSP men and high sensation seeking HSPs, which I talked about in the last video. So I'll leave a link in the cards up here. But essentially he wrote a book called Thrive, the Highly Sensitive Person in Career, which covers a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about today, including self-care strategies for HSPs in the workplace, good career fits for HSPs, as well as a lot of cool anecdotes from other highly sensitive people as it relates to careers. So I'll link that book down below if you guys want to pick it up. But let's jump into the video. So, and I just do want to add that there's another book out there by Barry Jagger talking about, I think it's called Making Work Work for the Highly Sensitive Person. That one's a bit older though, so it's maybe not as relevant in my opinion as Dr. Tracy Cooper's book, which was written, I believe, in 2015 or 16. So, the workplace changes a lot over time, and there's a lot of new opportunities out there. So just keep that in mind. So in terms of HSPs and career, I kind of wanted to loop in some of my early experiences because I'm relatively young at this point. I mean, I'm 25 years old, so I have worked in the corporate world for a few years now. And so my experience is maybe relatively new and young, but at the same time, I've gotten a pretty good sense so far of my feelings about working in the corporate world and kind of how it suited me and some of the strengths I can bring to that environment, and also some of maybe the weaknesses or areas where I'm not as big of a fan of. So essentially, let's start with talking about, the 9-to-5 workday. So, I mean, the way things are set up right now, like the majority of jobs are set up in that 9-to-5 type of 8-hour workday slot, where, especially in the corporate world, I found that, and it was like this in my previous job, but oftentimes you can even get stretched beyond those boundaries of 8 hours, and you may be expected to work later. Like you may be expected to work additional time on top of that, and to the point where it just can become very, very draining, especially for a highly sensitive person, where spending a lot of time at a computer doing mentally intensive work, and especially if you're working in an office environment, so in the physical environment, you also pick up on all the other things happening around you. So just having a bunch of people in your periphery who are talking, that noise adds to that energy that can deplete you. Sorry, something just popped up on my phone. So yeah, the noise adds to it. Um, you can pick up on the moods of other people in the office. So like those type of things all add to how quickly your energy can get depleted as a highly sensitive person, whereas someone who may not have as sensitive of a nervous system, they may not pick up on as many things, and it'll take a lot longer for them to have that energy level depleted. So that's what I found. So I found like when I was working that particular job, I would get tired quite easily. And I got to the point where I, really, just didn't want to work that late. I want to be able to, manage my energy levels a little bit better. And I've often found that, unfortunately, typically after about 4 to 6 hours of work in a typical workday, I'm pretty much like done. Like I can't. I really need to have time doing an alternate activity, whether that's some exercise or just taking my focus away from um, doing really mentally intensive work on my computer. Um, so yeah, that's just something I found. I found like I do tire pretty easily, more so maybe than the average person when I'm doing my work and stuff. And it's been a bit of a battle because I've been looking into ways that maybe my diet could, I can optimize my diet more so that I can have more energy throughout the workday. And I've had to like, be very conscious of like what I'm eating for lunch. And, I think those things are things highly sensitive people should keep in mind in terms of managing their energy levels so that they do bring as much energy as they can to a workday. And, I think that the body naturally around 2 or 3 p.m. gets a little tired because of the circadian rhythm. It's oftentimes called like the afternoon slump. And so I think that HSPs especially can really take advantage of when their energy is at their peak, which for me is personally in kind of the late morning, like 10 a.m., 11 a.m., and that's where I'm really the most productive when I'm at work. So that's something that I've been able to do. And what I like about the current job I'm working actually is that, I had a conversation with one of my coworkers about, when I first joined, I was a little bit concerned about, having to work overtime or, having to push my limits. But they ended up saying that, what, like our manager really values, employees, doing what's good for their well-being and, taking a rest every now and then and, working, according to what they feel will keep them in balance and stuff. And so that was really great to hear. And so I'm a lot more cognizant about work-life balance for myself and making sure that that's like a priority for me. And I think that really should be for any highly sensitive person. If they're in a job where it just doesn't allow for that, I really think they may have to explore other options and find ways where they can put work-life balance close to the top, because it's just so important, because you want to be able to show up at your best. So if you are an HSP, comment down below. I'd really like to know, where are you at with your career journey and how have things been going so far? Like what have you found are some of the struggles you've faced, and how have you been able to manage and cope with that? Definitely let me know in the comments below. So another thing is, deadlines and stress. So I think this is something that I definitely struggle with sometimes, and I've been able to manage it to the point where, I'm able to exert my boundaries and setting boundaries in the sense that if one of my coworkers maybe wants to, have me work on something in addition to what I was currently working on, but let's say I'm already really busy with the current task I'm doing, I will say, you know what, like whichever one's higher priority I'll work on right now, but the other one will have to wait. boundary setting like that can be very effective for a highly sensitive person because, it makes sure that there's less stimuli bouncing around in your head at the same time, which can lead to a lot of stress where you feel like you just have all these things you have to get done. You don't have much time. We like to kind of be very cautious or just take our time with our work because we want to do a good job. We want the product to be good. We want everyone to be happy about it. So that's something that I think can be helpful when it comes to deadlines and stress. I know that it may not be possible in every environment, and I think in my last workplace it was kind of such where sometimes there were like a lot of work that needs to be done in a short amount of time, where we have to finish a project for a client, and that's just kind of the way it is. And unfortunately, that position was like that, and I was working in consulting, so it was kind of that fast-moving world that maybe wasn't great for an HSP. But in my current job, it's kind of like I'm able to I still have a lot of things to do, but I'm able to kind of prioritize such that, um, I take as much time as I feel that I need. I'm still working efficiently, but I'm also not in the stage where I'm internally stressed while I'm doing it because I'm able to set my boundaries, and my managers and supervisor and everything, they're very understanding of how I work, and my coworkers are also very friendly and understanding, and that's why I think having if you are in a corporate environment as an HSP, I think it's crucial to find a really good culture that really values the way you work and the strengths that you do add. And we'll get to that later. I'll talk a bit about as a highly sensitive person, like what can you actually add to a workplace that other people maybe are not as capable of adding. So that's that. And yeah, so and now I wanted to touch on remote work. So right now it's actually the pandemic. So if you guys are watching in future years, this is 2020 and it absolutely sucks. But here we are in the pandemic, and one of the positives is actually that I've basically been able to work from home all the time, which is really good for HSPs. I can completely manage my environment. I can stay right here in my room, manage everything. I have my aroma diffuser. I have my cool little lamp thing back here, and so I have I'm able to create an environment for myself where I can feel relaxed, feel productive, not have distractions. And HSPs really like being able to get into a flow state where they can really work in solitude and be able to accomplish something, and work without being interrupted and stuff. So that's something I definitely appreciate. Of course, in my last video, I mentioned that I'm a highly sensitive extrovert, or I'm on the more extroverted side. So that is one area that's kind of a downside, where I don't really have social interactions. So that part kind of sucks. But by and large, I go to work to be productive and to get my stuff done, and I really appreciate having this environment. And I think that the world, fortunately, seems to be trending to the point where they're even talking about offices maybe becoming obsolete. Things will be different once the pandemic is over. HSPs and just anybody will have more opportunities to maybe have more choice and autonomy over how they work and like in what environment they want to work in. And I really think that's a great step, because it really depends on, everyone has different preferences, right? There may be other types of personalities where those people really benefit from having people around them all the time to bounce ideas off of and work in that way. But there's also a lot of studies that show that you can actually be a lot more productive when you're on your own, and you're able to have that directed focus where other people are not interrupting you, and you can manage your energy a lot better that way as well. So I hope that that's the case, where everyone kind of gets to the point where all employees have a choice in terms of where they work, at least, of course, for office employees. I understand a lot of people work in environments where they have to be in a physical environment, and they have to go in and stuff, and the situation's a bit different. But yeah, so I think remote work is really great for HSPs. If you can arrange something like that with your manager, I think that's a great benefit, and it will really pay dividends for you. And the other thing I want to touch on about my experiences is finding a sense of meaning in my work. I think that HSPs, a lot of us are wired such that we need a purpose. We need to know why we're doing our work, right? Like, it's not enough to just clock in and clock out every day and kind of just go through the motions. After a while, you start to be like, wait, like, what? Why am I doing this? You know, like, I get it's making me money, but like, I'm doing this every day. I'm spending the most majority of my time doing this. Like, what's the point? Like there has to be like a greater, like a bigger picture purpose to why I'm doing what I'm doing. Um, so that's something that's been one of my main struggles, and I found that it's actually quite difficult to find that in the corporate world. Particularly my first job was very basic, like easy type of spreadsheet type of work that I feel like a lot of people could do. And so I found like the majority of my day I would just spend daydreaming and just kind of doing my own thing, and just thinking about all kinds of things, thinking about, how what I'm going to do when I get home, and your mind ends up going towards that as opposed to like the task at hand. And there wasn't really like a meaningful purpose that was really motivating me to go into my job and to actually do it well. So that's something that you can get trapped in. And unfortunately, we live in a society where businesses, I mean, the goal is to make money, right? And it's not really to do meaningful work all the time, right? I know a lot of companies are starting to value, social responsibility, and so there's kind of that meaning and purpose mixed into a lot of jobs where they have opportunities to volunteer and get involved with charitable work, and there's a lot of great nonprofits out there, so that can be a great thing. But I feel like by and large, a lot of HSPs would probably find most jobs quite meaningless, and I feel like they would get more fulfillment out of working in maybe a humanistic based field like the helping professions in the medical system, or in like psychology or something like that, or of course entrepreneurship and doing their own thing. And I'll touch on that towards the end of the video. Yeah, so so we touched on that, and now I'm going to talk a bit about the highly sensitive man in the workplace, because there are some subtle differences, at least in terms of some of the gender biases that can get mixed in to working as an HSP man. So I mean, the viewer that I had addressed, he was an HSP man, and he had said that he was expected, and it could have, if a woman was in the same position, maybe the same expectation would be placed, but he was saying that of course his bosses kind of expected him to be kind of like super quick and decisive all the time, and be very tough, and not show emotion, and have some of those types of traits, right? Which doesn't really fit in well with sensitivity and the types of traits that maybe he could offer as a leader, right? So there's differences in leadership, right, versus maybe the traditional leader and someone who's more a modern day leader, who's maybe more shows a bit more empathy. And so there can be a lot of expectations, and of course things are changing. Workplaces are becoming more well-rounded, where they do some of these personality tests like MBTI for their employees, and it helps them identify like the differences in terms of their employees' personalities, and how those employees can work best, and how they can be supported. And so I think it's great that workplaces are becoming a little bit more individualized and customized, because everyone is different, right? It's not a one size fits all in terms of setting up a way in which people work the best. But so I think that is good, and things are trending in the right direction. But of course, there's still, I don't think we're there yet in terms of having the point where different people's personalities, or let's say more like masculine, feminine energies, both are valued in a corporate environment. And I think a lot of those traditional stereotypes still reign true in terms of having those maybe more masculine energy type of traits being valued in a corporate environment, where you really need, at least in the eyes of CEOs, you need efficiency, you need decisiveness, you need a lot of not letting feelings play a role, and not letting feelings get to you, and you have to make those decisions in a business context. Constantly being very stoic, and just not letting emotions come into play. Maybe some of that ordering people around, kind of dominating your employees by kind of just telling them what to do all the time. These are often very traditional type of CEO traits. And they're things that, are traditionally associated as like masculine type of traits. So there can be the expectation as an HSP man, if you're in that environment, to exhibit some of those traits so you can, I guess, move up the corporate ladder faster and be like more effective as a leader. And so there could be that pressure there, right? Um, and so yeah, so that definitely plays a role, and that's why I think it's important that as an HSP man, you find a work environment where you are valued for what you can contribute. And there's a lot of ways that HSPs, both men and women, can add value to the workplace, and we'll talk a bit about those now. So um, HSPs have a lot of really great traits for the workplace that aren't really in line with those traditional traits, but they're actually really helpful for a modern workplace and actually where things are going in terms of the workplace. So HSPs, they're very conscientious. So they always have a need for things to be done really like thoroughly and well. And that can conflict because if efficiency is a really high value of a corporation, then maybe they're not always prioritizing having things be done very well and carefully. But I know that at least when it comes to decisions, it's not always great to make a quick decision, which can be very rash and may not consider maybe, let's say, all the viewpoints of a workforce where, like, let's say you're a leader, like a CEO, and you need to make a decision. If you just kind of make the decision right away and be super quick and decisive, that's not always the best move, because you have a lot of people working under you can probably offer value to that decision and add advice and their ways of thinking and problem solving to actually help you make a better decision. So you really want to be able to, like, get the feedback of the people, your employees, and really consider their opinions and value their opinions. And so that I think is the right way to go, and what a lot of organizations are starting to value. And it goes in line with that as well, but HSPs have a pretty good attention to detail. And I know that that's one of the things, the strengths I've brought to the workplace, and I think a lot of my managers have liked this about me. I have the ability to really be very thorough and always consider all the angles of a situation and really do a really good job in terms of the products I produce, whether it's some kind of report or some kind of data I need to collect and present, or if I need to write some ads or whatever because I work in advertising, then that's something that, if you put in a lot of effort and stuff, that can really pay dividends, and really, if you have that attention to detail, it can really pay off. And then empathy, and this is something where Dr. Tracy Cooper talks about in his book Thrive, where he talks about how there's now becoming more of an importance and value in showing empathy as a leader. Traditionally, leaders would be people who would just kind of order people around, tell people what to do all the time. But a lot of people, or scientists, researchers, are starting to realize that, what, it's actually more effective for leaders to really may create an environment where they're being empathetic towards the employees that are working under them, really trying to understand their capabilities, their strengths, really care about their interests. And as a result, the employees are a lot more engaged, and they're a lot more, they're actually really wanting to help out and stay engaged and productive in their jobs. And so a leader who can kind of, be more, affiliative and really work together with their employees and help create a good environment for them, I think can really help out an organization. And that's something HSPs, especially HSPs who grow into leadership positions, I think that this is something that they can really do quite well. HSPs are a bit cautious. They like to exercise caution as it relates to taking their time with making decisions and stuff. But of course, as I mentioned, that can be a good thing. Sometimes you do need to make quick decisions, but at the same time, it can be good to kind of also consider some of the negative impacts that could come from making a decision that's a bit rash, right? You want to make sure that you're not just jumping to a conclusion too quickly without actually considering multiple angles to the situation of how things could turn out. And another thing is creativity. HSPs tend to err on the side of creativity, and this could be offer a lot of value in terms of if they work in like a creative profession, like maybe graphic design. I know that that can be a conflict because some workplaces maybe just have a system for doing things, and you got to follow this process, and there's no room for new creative solutions. And I think that if you're in that kind of environment, that could be a detriment to you as an HSP. I think that you're better suited to an environment that allows for more autonomy and allows you to really contribute more of your own creativity and opinions, and you have a bit more free reign in that sense. So I think more of an entrepreneurial, maybe startup type environment, or like, yeah, as I said, like the creative fields can be really good, as opposed to more of a where there's like a one size fits all. You got to follow this process, and that's it. And then HSPs are more than capable of complex problem solving, and I think that if they're in a workplace that really values their personality, what they bring to the table, what they say, and in the meetings, or in conversations with their employer, if what they say is valued, then I think that HSPs are in a good spot where they can really help out in terms of their complex problem solving abilities and the ability to, again, think of things from multiple angles, really kind of see the potential consequences of a decision. Yeah, and just really do pretty damn good at problem solving. So yeah, that's really how HSPs, I think, can add a lot of value, and you can see that they have a lot of strengths that maybe are not always considered, at least traditionally in a workplace. These are things that some of these new traits like empathy. Oh, empathy can be useful in a corporate setting. I didn't know that. But a lot of people are starting to realize, empathy can be useful in a corporate setting. Taking your time can be useful, complex problem solving and actually having out of the box solutions and not a one size fits all approach can actually be really great. And I think it's good that some of these things are starting to come to the forefront, and HSPs are kind of finding their place more so in that environment. And so I want to just finish this video just talking about some of the careers just that I think, or just kind of what you should start to think about as an HSP if you kind of want to find a career that could be a good fit for you. One thing that Dr. Tracy Cooper talks about is that, there's HSPs working in all kinds of careers, right? And you really could, depending on your personality as an HSP, you could enter any one of a number of careers, even ones that may not scream to you as an HSP, a popular HSP type career. But it really depends on just trying things out and kind of finding what works for you individually. But I do think that there are certain careers that can utilize your strengths a little more than others. One of those is, as I mentioned, the helping professions. Helping professions are a place where, empathy is a really highly valued skill. So if you're working, let's say, one-to-one with patients as a doctor, or you're working with, maybe you're a psychologist and you're working with different clients where you have to work on kind of personal growth and maybe helping them get over different disorders and stuff. I think that can be a place where you can really utilize your abilities. And yeah, speaking from an MBTI context, so personality type, I think, INFJs, INFPs can be really, really good at those kind of professions. Another thing is, yeah, the creative design, like creative fields. So graphic design, even software development can be good if you're more of like a systematic type of thinker, or you think more in like logic. I'm trying to think of more creative fields, but anything that, I know artistic stuff can also be a struggle because, sometimes there's not a lot of money in that, but I think that if you have that interest, definitely pursue it. But they have like UX design, things like that. I mentioned that I'm working advertising, that allows you to be creative as it relates to copywriting, and, you can add some more creativity there in terms of, writing, and there's that creative writing aspect, and so that can be a really good fit, where I think like there's a little more opportunity for contributing your own ideas and your own visions, and yeah. So I think you should definitely look into creative fields. And the last thing is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship, especially nowadays, it's coming to the point where there's no longer that intense risk for starting a business that there maybe once was, where you have to have all these overhead costs and you have to like have all these upfront costs, hire a bunch of employees, get all this equipment. A lot of that stuff is not as much of a factor because of the internet and the new opportunities that allow for creating businesses where you have no overhead, and you can create like online courses. You could start a YouTube channel like this one. You could do freelancing where you're working remotely and you're able to maybe just start with like one client, and it's not as high risk because you're just trying to test, just start with one client, get some work from them, and then build your way up. So I think entrepreneurship is a way where HSPs can actually customize their environment a lot more, as opposed to working in an organization where there's maybe a little more structure and rules. Especially for HSPs who I think like ENFPs, INFPs in the MBTI context, who have that drive for more freedom and more autonomy. I think it can be good to be an entrepreneur where you decide your own schedule. You decide exactly what kind of value you want to add to the world. You can create your own environment where you're working wherever you want. There's more of that customizability built in, and you're also in a position where you have to think really complex in terms of you have to be able to know what other people want, and finding ways that you can deliver value, and maybe different products and services that you can create, and that involves a lot of creativity and complex problem solving, which are things we talked about as strengths for HSPs. So I definitely think you should look into entrepreneurship for sure. So that essentially covers everything I wanted to talk about in this video. So I know it's kind of we're up over 30 minutes here, so I hope that this was helpful. I know it was very thorough. And so yeah, if you're an HSP and you just want advice as relates to your career, just direction with your career and deciding how you want to take things, I hope that this video was helpful. And if it was, definitely hit the like button. And as I talked about before, on this channel, we cover, a lot about HSPs, particularly from a male perspective, MBTI, personality psychology, and mental health topics. So if any of that stuff interests you, definitely consider hitting that subscribe button, clicking the bell, and sticking around for more videos. And so that's pretty much it, guys. So again, the book Thrive by Dr. Tracy Cooper, that goes more into depth on this career, HSP and career topics. I'll link it down in the description below. And until next time, guys, take care, and we'll see you in the next one.